iron neck collars in groups of 30.
If they were men of virtue, they would not have left their own country. They have made highwaymen, adulterers, and murderers of themselves, without shame of men or fear of any god. Timucua.
But the Timucua were people who also knew of war. As the Spanish army advanced, news reached one leader, Urrutina, who was secure in a military strength that had never failed him. As the Spanish force neared Urrutina's town, De Soto sent a messenger ahead with a warning to submit or be destroyed. Urrutina responded,
I am king in my land. I and all of my people have vowed to die 100 deaths to maintain the freedom of our land. This is our answer, both for the present and forevermore.
De Soto entered Urrutina's town with his army in battle formation, but oddly, they met no resistance. The chief, who had promised such defiance, seemed to have completely submitted, but the surface belied the reality. While the Spaniards gorged upon the town's food stores, Urrutina secretly summoned fighting men from throughout the region. Then, playing out a military chess game, the young chief invited De Soto to witness Timucua military maneuvers in a large field. His plan? To amass his army and launch a surprise attack on the Spanish force. But De Soto had been forewarned by a spy. Matching the Indian leader move for move, he brought his army to the field in battle formation. To the rear of the Timucua force were 2 lakes. To their flanks were forest, and in front of them, the Spanish army. Suddenly, De Soto gave a signal. Urrutina was seized, and the Spaniards attacked. Spanish cavalry thundered forward, their horses' hooves driving into the Timucuan ranks. Outmatched, the Indian force fell back. Some ran towards the shelter of the trees. Hundreds more plunged into the lake nearby, swimming out into the deep water to evade their pursuers. The Spaniards fired into the lake, trying to force the Timucua to surrender. Indian resistors had to tread water constantly, but by nightfall, not a single man had yielded. A Spanish chronicler observed the agonizing struggle.
And now, they continued to torment the Indians, never once letting them set foot on the shore, hoping that they would become exhausted by the swimming, and as a result give up the more quickly. Thus, they threatened with death those who would not surrender. Regardless of how much the Castilians afflicted them, they could not do enough to keep them from showing their spirit and strength. For even though these men realized that they were without hope of help in the hardships and danger they were experiencing, some chose death as a lesser evil.
It was not until late the following morning that 200 survivors surrendered in a body.
They had been swimming 24 hours, and it was a great pity to see them emerge from the lagoon, half drowned and swollen and transfixed by the toil, hunger, fatigue, and lack of sleep they had suffered. Garcilaso de la Vega, Spanish chronicler.
The remaining 7 were dragged out of the water at knife point by De Soto's men. The Timucuan prisoners were chained and distributed among the Spanish soldiers as slaves. Urrutina was imprisoned inside his own state house. He would make one last act of defiance. Pretending to have passively accepted his defeat, he lulled De Soto within his reach. Suddenly, he lunged at the Spanish leader, smashing his face with chained fists.
The chief gave out such a tremendous roar that it could be heard for a quarter of a league around. The blow was so fierce that De Soto was unconscious for more than half an hour, and he bled through the eyes, nose, and mouth.
Simultaneously, Urrutina was gored by 12 swordsmen. Outside, the Timucua fell upon their captors, fighting with stones, pots of boiling food, anything at hand. The Spaniards turned upon them, killing indiscriminately.
They were valiant and spirited people, and had they found themselves free, would have done more harm. With all that, imprisoned as they were, they tried to do everything they could, and for this reason, the Spaniards killed each of them, not permitting a single one to live, which was a great pity.
In a certain way, I feel like the land has a memory of its own, and the memory of the suffering can still be felt in the southeastern United States. You can go into sites where Indian villages, and even we might say cities, once were, and you can see the ruins, you can see the mounds where people were buried, and you don't see the people. And you know immediately there was a great and tragic story there.